Hello everyone, my name is Marth and today we'll be looking at some MATLAB basics. Let's start with some basic matrix operations. To create a simple vector, we can specify the elements in these square braces as I've done here. You can also separate each of these elements using commas. When we add a constant to a vector, like adding 3 here, this 3 propagates to each of the elements in this vector and 3 is added as follows. So 3 is added to 10, 20, 30 and it's added to all of the elements. If we want to create a 5 by 5 matrix, we will separate each of the rows using semicolons. So the first row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and the second row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is separated using this semicolon. To find the transpose of a matrix, all we need to do is place a apostrophe here and this will automatically transpose the X matrix and store it into Y. If we place an asterisk operation between X and Y, it will matrix multiply both of these matrices and we get the result here. Instead of matrix multiplying, if we had wanted to multiply the corresponding elements of each of the matrices, we could use this dot operator here. This dot operator can be used with other operators also. So if I had wanted to add the corresponding elements of both of the matrices, I could have used x dot plus y here. This operation is known as slicing and it is very useful in MATLAB. The matrix followed by parenthesis and a comma which separates the rows and the columns. The first element describes how many rows we are selected and the second specifies how many columns are selected. So in this case I have selected the fourth row and I have selected all of the columns because I haven't specified anything here. And finally we're transposing it using this apostrophe, so it comes out as a column vector instead of a row vector. Here we have another example. We're selecting all of the rows and we're selecting the 3 columns 1, 2, 3 and you can see we get those here. Here we take the first to third rows and the second to fourth columns from the X matrix to create a smaller matrix X2. To delete a row, we just equate that we slice that row and equate it to this empty list. So in this case we are selecting all of the rows and the second column, so we're essentially deleting the second column in this process, and as you can see there's no the second column has been deleted. Now we'll come to the plotting commands in MATLAB. MATLAB can be used to plot different signals and different functions very easily. I'll explain each of these commands step by step. So these 3 instructions are used to clear the terminal and clear all the existing variables in the workspace. I define my time axis from 0 to 10 with a 0.01 step size. So I am essentially creating 10 into 100, so like 1000 samples. I am taking 1000 samples. The sin t function will be propagated among all of these samples and y will be a vector of 1000 output samples. This command is used to open up a new figure dialog box. This is the command that you can use to plot the time and the output values y, and you will see that, and you can see that here. Now as you can now we will add some grid. We'll add a grid to the figure and we'll label the x and y axes and we'll add a legend, and that you can see here. Now there's also a very useful feature called the subplot, and I'll open up a new figure dialog box to for this figure. This subplot command is used to divide the entire placeholder for the figures into three columns, three rows and one column, and we can specify each of the and we can specify what goes in each of these slots. So in the first slot I'm plotting the same thing, the sine signal that we plotted, and you can see that here. So the workspace is divided into three parts. The first part is the sine signal that we saw earlier. In the second subplot, I'm plotting the same signal, but I'm using this axis tied command. What this does is this limits the x range and the y range to the minimum possible values, so that we can see the entire signal. In the third subplot, I'm plotting using the stem function. The stem function is used to plot discretized data that is not continuous, that does not need to appear continuous, and you can see the output here. Next up is the saving and the reading commands. If I want to save my variables, the variables that are on my workspace, I'll have to use this save command line, and we'll have to specify the extension, the name of the file and the extension along with it, and MATLAB will automatically save it as that form of file. So if we want to save it as a .mat file, we'll have to just give the name and append it with .mat. If you want to create a txt file, we just add a .txt here. For reading and writing XLS files, you will use the XLS write and the XLS read commands. These commands are deprecated in newer versions of MATLAB, and MATLAB recommends using the save and the read commands itself for you reading and writing on XLS files. What these saving and writing commands do, they save all of the variables into a file, and you can see that file on your file manager. I'm doing the same thing here. You can pass parameters to the save function like this, and in this case it will save it as a .ascii file, and in this case I'm telling the save function that I need to save a structure, and as you can see S1 is a structure here, so that will save the structure. If you want to edit or append a file that you have already created, like you already saved some variables on a file and you want to append more variables, then all you need to do is pass this parameter append on the same function. This append function will override any variables that are renamed in the new workspace that you're going to save. The write cell and read cell commands reads cells on and save them in a CSV or like delimited text files, which can be used in signal processing softwares or other places where we need delimited text files. The write matrix and the read matrix is used to read and write specific matrices, and you can save them using these delimited text files. Now you can also read audio and write audio using MATLAB, and when we use the audio read command and read a audio file, we get the audio points, which in this case is stored in the data variable, and the sampling rate, which I have stored in this fs. The sampling rate determines how fast the data should be played when we're sounding it. So in this small program, I'm just reducing the sampling rate to by half and resaving the file by audio writing it. So in this case, when we play back the file, the sound will appear to be coming playing at a very low sampling rate, and it will sound like the audio has been distorted. Now we approach part 3, writing expressions. Here I've created a function called quadratic roots, which takes ABC, which represents the coefficients of ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0, and I am outputting the roots, the two roots that are the roots of this equation. So here I find the discriminant by taking b square minus 4ac, and I'm taking the square root here. So this uses the identity minus b plus minus square root of b square minus 4ac by 2a, and in case the discriminant is negative and we get imaginary roots, MATLAB will automatically handle those complex calculations. So in this case, when I call this function quadratic roots by placing the coefficients as 1, 5, 6, I get the two roots as minus 2 and minus 3. Now we'll plot this function over this range. So as always, we'll define the range in a vector by this command. So I'm going from minus 5 to 10, and I'm taking 0.01 unit steps along the way. So that will be 15, that is 10 minus 5 minus 5, so that is 15 into 100, so that will be 1500 steps. And for each of the steps I'm getting the output in y by transcribing this each of the input values to the output values, and I'm plotting using the plot function, and we get this graph. Now we have reached the part 4, where we take a look at some common MATLAB commands and functions. The first one is rep element, which stands for repetition element. It repeats the elements in the array of the first argument. So in this case, each element of A will be repeated 3 times. Remat, which stands for repetition matrix, creates copies of the array A and creates a new matrix. So in this case, the function will create a 2 by 2 matrix using this A matrix as one element. So it will be like, if you count this as one element, this will represent a 2 by 2 element. You can also give 3 arguments in this function and specify the number of rows and columns if they are not equal. The I function outputs identity matrix. So if I give an I4, so it will give me a 4-dimensional identity matrix as shown here. The zeros functions give me a matrix which has all of its elements as 0, and you can specify 2 different arguments here if the number of columns and rows are not equal. The ones function, just like the zeros function, can take 2 arguments representing the number of rows and number of columns, and it will give a matrix which has all of its elements as 1. The rand function gives a matrix with uniformly distributed random numbers, and these numbers are between 0 and 1. You can scale these up by multiplying the whole matrix with a constant or adding constant. In this case, I am requesting a 3,4 dimensional random matrix, as you can see here. Reshape can reshape any matrix given that the number of elements in both of these are the same. So if I have a 4,3 random matrix which is B, I can reshape it to a 3,4, and you can see here that B now has 3 rows and 4 columns instead of 4 rows and 3 columns, which I had defined it earlier, The cat command can concatenate 2 or more matrices, and it can do it in multiple dimensions. So in this case, I am passing 1 as the first argument, so it will concatenate along the first dimension. If I had given 2, like in this case, it concatenates along the second dimension. Horizontal concatenation and vertical concatenation are special case of this concatenation, and in this case we don't have to give the first argument as the dimension in which the concatenation has to happen, but it works the same as the cat function. To create a diagonal matrix, all we have to do is pass the diagonal elements to the diagonal function, and you can get a diagonal matrix as shown. The diagonal function can also extract the diagonal elements from an existing matrix, as you can see here. You get the diagonal 159. The block diagonal matrix creates a new matrix which has each of the parameters as a diagonal entry. So in this case, I have given a 2x2 and a 2x2 matrix A and B as the parameters to this block diagonal function, and each of these matrices end up on the diagonal of this new block matrix. Flip LR flips the matrix left to right. So in this case, it mirrors it. So 1 is on the right, but it was defined on the left. Flip UD flips the matrix up and down. So 1, 2, 3. So the rows get flipped. In this case, the columns get flipped. Rot 90 is used to rotate a matrix in the counterclockwise sense. If you want to rotate it more than 90, you can call this function multiple times. The trill function extracts the lower triangular part. So in this case, the lower triangular part is this part of the matrix. The rest of the elements are automatically zeroed by this function. Similarly, the trio function works in the opposite sense, and it extracts the upper right triangular part of the matrix. The permute function is used to reorder the dimensions of the array. So if I have a multi-dimensional array, I can specify in which order I want the dimensions to be. So in this case, I want the second dimension to be placed first, and the first dimension to be placed second. So it reshapes the matrix A, and we get this type of matrix which instead of the first rows, it has the first column. So it like transposes the rows and columns. The shift array circularly function is used to shift the array like a map. So this specifies that I want to shift the matrix A once in the horizontal direction and once in the vertical direction. So imagine this matrix, and it's shifted by 1 unit to the right and 1 unit downwards, and these elements that get out of this area are overlapped on the other side like a continuous region. The length function gives the length of the largest array dimension of the matrix. So in this case, we have a 3x3 matrix, so the maximum dimension is 3, so it outputs 3. The size mentions the size of all of the dimensions. So if I have a multi-dimensional matrix here, it will output the number of elements in each of these dimensions. The enddims function is used to get how many dimensions does the matrix cover. So here I just have a 2 dimensional matrix, so the number of dimensions is 2. The null function gives the number of elements in the matrix. So in this case I have 9. The matrix has 9 elements, so it outputs 9. The isEmpty is a boolean function which returns true or false, so and it determines whether the array is empty or not. In the first case the array is not empty, so it outputs 0, but in the second case it is empty because there are no elements in the array, so it outputs a 1. The part 5 where we talk about loops. MATLAB has multiple types of loops. The most common is the while loop. The while repeatedly executes the commands in the body which are enclosed by the start, which is started by the while and ends by the end statement until the condition here is true. So in this case I is equal to 0, so since 0 is less than 6 it will return 2, and since this is 2 these statements will get executed. And here we increasing the value of I by 1, so in the next loop I will be 1, and since 1 is still less than 6, this loop will continue another 6 times. In this for loop what we are doing is we're specifying a matrix for I, and MATLAB will automatically iterate it over each of the elements in I. And since the number of elements in I is 6, this loop will run for 6 times, and in each iteration it will display the word hello. We can have nested loops in MATLAB like any other language. This is the outer for loop and this is the inner for loop. The inner for loop executes a number of times which is determined by the value of I in the outer loop. So, and the output we get is this. After increasing each line number which is represented by the outer loop, we have to increment the number of times you have to print the stars, which is handled by the inner for loop. Continue statement is a very useful statement used in a loop to skip the remainder of the body of the loop and continue with the next iteration. So in this case this for loop executes from 1 to 5, and it checks if I is equal to 3, and then it continues. So what happens is, and it displays the number at the end. So what happens is, for 1 2 this if loop won't get executed and will display the number, but for when I is equal to 3, this condition holds true and we execute the continue statement. And when this is executed, we no longer need to execute this display I command. We directly go to the next iteration, which is when I is equal to 4, and carry on with the rest of the execution of the program, as you can see here. Break statement is often used to break out of the for loop and not execute the rest of the iterations of the loop. So in this case, as soon as I equals 3, we break out the for loop, and the values when I is equal to 4 and 5 are not executed and not displayed. In part 5 of this video, we'll talk about decision making constructs in MATLAB. The first one is the if-end statement. MATLAB executes the body of the if statement, which is started by this if command and ends with this end statement, as long as the condition is true, and executes it once. So in this case, since marks is 95 which is greater than 60, it will execute display it will display pass. If we want to display something, if this condition has not returned true, we can do that using the else construct. So since marks is equal to 70, it will execute this and display pass. But if marks was less than 60, say it was 50, then since this is not true, it will execute this else block and display fail. Sometimes we need to give we need to check for conditions for more than two truths and false, so we can do that using the else if statements. If MATLAB first checks the first condition, if it's true it executes this part, but if it's false it checks for the second condition and executes this part if it's true, and so on, and it executes the else part if none of these are true. We can have, just as we have nested loops, we can have nested if statements, and sometimes we need to sub check a condition. So if marks is greater than 60, but if they are greater than 90, then we can display the A grade, or else you can display fail, or you can check other conditions like B, C here. Switch statement is a construct provided by MATLAB, and it can be used in some cases if the instead of the if statements, if the conditions we need to check are against constants. So if x is equal to 2, then we will check each of x against all of the cases here. So since x is equal to 2, it will execute this case 2 block. If neither 1 nor 2 satisfy x, suppose I give x equal to 3, then the otherwise block is executed. The nested switch statements are used very rarely in MATLAB, but it is possible we can do that. In this case, I am checking if the operation is 1 or operation is 2. Operation 2 represents concatenation and operation 1 represents mathematical operation. Then I am checking using another switch statement which is nested inside this case. I am checking the operator. Since the operator is an asterisk, I am going to multiply and display this result. If it was a division sign, then I would have divided it, and as you can see, it multiplies 11 into 10 and the output is 1110. And that is all. Thank you.